Good evening. This is Maestro Critello with the Dawn of War 2 Retribution Elite Modcast. Today, we have a 1v1 on Siwal Frontier. Our first player is VindicareX, a longtime Dawn of War 2 veteran, playing as Sindri, Trollface, Chaos Sorcerer. This is a spell-casting hero with area of effect, manipulation, and damage spells. His opponent is DarkHero, playing as the Space Marines Force Commander. A tanky melee hero who can do a lot of melee damage, disruption, and some area of effect buffs. Hey guys, I know I disappeared on you again, but summer's usually a busy time for me, and although I am back, I can't really promise the same kind of frequency or consistency that I used to have. I've added casting back into my life while not really subtracting a lot of other things that I've added since I had announced my retirement. Additionally, I had some experiments before trying to start casting in 60 FPS. They weren't entirely successful. For now, I'm continuing to cast in 30 until I have that figured out. I'm not even 100% sure that I'll be able to do it, but we'll see. Anyway then, we've got classic matchup right here, Chaos versus Space Marines, and of course my favorite hero, the Sorcerer. This is an interesting matchup in the sense that for a while, it was said that it was very, very heavily in the Force Commander's favor. But between some number of patches and just players grinding out this matchup, there was also a time when a very good player named Torpid had said to me that he actually now thinks it favors the Sorcerer rather than the Force Commander. And that's quite a turnaround to say it actually favors the Sorcerer, when for a while it had been believed that it heavily favored the Force Commander. But, I mean, it could be any number of things. It could be balance changes in between patches. It could even just be a shifting in what little metagame there is to this game. And since this is not a terribly popular game, the metagame for it is not terribly well known and honestly a little underexplored. But, I mean, I can at least speak to what some of the specific challenges that both of these heroes can face in this matchup. The Sorcerer, on the one hand, since he is himself not really a dedicated... He's not even really a dedicated melee hero. He's more of a spellcaster who has a melee attack. But his melee attack really doesn't compare to a melee tank. Additionally, he doesn't really do range damage until Tier 2, so he struggles to deal with tanking melee heroes a bit. We're going to see a pretty nice grenade right here. Surprised to see Vindicare take that grenade. Lost one Havoc model, one Chaos Space Marine model. And I can only imagine that that was kind of a drop in micro. Normally I would expect a player of Vindicare's caliber to be a little wiser to that, move around those, certainly at least have those Havocs unset up and not run the Chaos Space Marines right into it. In theory, a good player should not really get hit by grenades, especially a grenade right there that was really raw. It wasn't really like a hard read on like a fake. It was really just raw, just right on top of the Havoc, and the Chaos Space Marines happened to walk just right into it. So the Sorcerer also, Chaos in general, their opening composition usually doesn't have very high range DPS, which is normally part of how you deal with a tanky melee hero. You kite and focus fire. Usually requires two different range squads, and usually it helps if they do a fair amount of damage. Chaos generally has lower opening range DPS, so it's a little bit harder for them to kite and focus fire, unless you're playing the Plague Champion or upgraded to the Combi Flamer with the Chaos Lord. Sorcerer really has no such answer, so he's got to get a lot more creative in the way he deals with tanky melee heroes. We're going to rely very, very heavily on this Havoc right here. Now, what the Force Commander can struggle with is sometimes Chaos players can go with a build of lots of Heretics. Just cheaply put out lots of Heretics, and that will give the Chaos player map control. Just cheaply put out more units, and just kind of overwhelm the Space Marine player with map control. Doesn't look like Vindicare is choosing to do that. He is getting two different range units. He's got the Noise Marines as well as the Chaos Space Marines, so he can at least in theory kite and focus fire the Force Commander. These two units just aren't particularly good at it. What I also see Vindicare has done, he's got the Noise Marines, and I feel like that's not so much like a typical build, but I feel like it's a situational build for this map. I like the Noise Marine choice on this map because of how short of a run it is from your base to your opponent's power. If they're not paying attention, they can pretty easily lose a generator or two, and if it's a supported power push, they could lose the entire farm. Now I like that right there. DarkHero was struggling with the Havoc because he hadn't really yet committed to any kind of hard counter to it. Doesn't have Assault Space Marines. Doesn't look like he's going to get them, at least not anytime soon. Instead, he used the drop pod call-in to situationally just win that engagement, and now he's also committed to a second tack squad. So he's got a very shooty build, and the Sorcerer this is also something the Sorcerer can struggle a little bit with, since he will kind of be at the mercy of basically an opponent that straight up will have higher range DPS. There's really no way around that. And again, he's got to be a little bit more creative about how he deals with that. He can use control from the Havocs and the Noise Marines, burst damage from the Sorcerer's spells, mainly the Doom Bolts. If he wanted to, he could get the Sword of Flame as well as the Vestments of the Warp. It's been a while since I said that one. I don't think that will be a particularly great idea though. Because while Vindicare may not have a whole lot of focus fire to focus down the Force Commander, DarkHero will really have no shortage of focus fire to focus down a Sorcerer should he get aggressive in melee. We've got double scouts right here, both upgraded with their sergeants. What's nice about getting double scouts and upgrading them with their sergeants is that they can I don't know. I needed an adverb there and I couldn't think of one. They can harass heretics. They can run up, harass heretics, bleed models pretty quickly because of the upgraded damage of having an extra model on each squad. If the heretics try to approach, the scouts will just run away, and since they have faster speed, heretics should in theory never be able to catch the scouts. Now, Vindicare, amazingly, has gotten to Tier 2 first. And I say amazingly because he, at least from what it looked like, it did not like he had that much control over a lot of the resource points in the middle. In fact, it really seemed like to me that DarkHero had more control of those resource points in the middle. But I think the way Vindicare did it was that he managed to not bleed a whole lot of Requisition in Tier 1. I know he did lose that one Havoc model, that one Chaos Space Marine model, but I think aside from that, he kept his Requisition bleed fairly low. He did actually lose a Heretic squad and then only chose to replace it. May not have even spent much time reinforcing that original Heretic squad. So I think he just didn't bleed much and was able to basically go to tier 1 or Tier 2 relatively quickly based on that. Even had some power expenditures. Chaos Space Marines definitely overstaying their welcome at this point. Will be lucky to not lose a model. There's a chance they will, but that is the advantage of playing Space Marines or Chaos. Those Chaos Space Marine or Space Marine models, sometimes it seems like you will come so close to losing a model and then just not. So Vindicare's gone for Bloodletters, and he's actually quite a bit ahead of DarkHero in tech. And I think a lot of that also has to do with the generator bashes that Vindicare has been getting. Whereas I'm pretty sure Vindicare has not lost any generators. He only has 2 up, but again, he has not lost any. So he's been getting that consistent power income from the 2 generators as well as the node. While DarkHero's power income has been a lot more intermittent, and he's had a lot more sunk requisition costs from rebuying generators. So Vindicare's also been a little bit more aggressive, and I guess where the resources kind of even out, if they actually do even out, is in the fact that Vindicare had that aggressive push on the power, so he's disrupting DarkHero's power. DarkHero, on the other hand, had more control over the middle resource points. Bloodletters almost seem like somewhat of a surprising purchase to me, but I feel that I'm mainly saying it's surprising because I have this spectator view where I knew how far ahead Vindicare was in tech. If he had known how far he was in tech, I'm wondering if a Blood Crusher might have been a better idea, since there would have been at least a short window where the Blood Crusher would have been completely uncountered. And the Blood Crusher is usually that very situational unit that honestly relies on having that very short window, so you need to be decisive with it. But Blood Crusher is also a little risky against the Force Commander, of course, because he does have the Power Fist where he can use the Flesh over Steel ability, which is often considered very, very strong against walkers, since they can't really just micro away from the Force Commander the way a tank or a transport would. Meanwhile, DarkHero is now getting his Tier 2 purchase. He's getting a Dreadnought, and I think DarkHero is currently struggling a little bit on at least the VPs. He's behind in VPs. He has been definitely getting pushed back a lot to his base for most of the game. Hopefully this Dreadnought will give him some kind of pushing power to get out there more. And additionally, since Vindicare had the Bloodletters out on the field, that being a cheaper Tier 2 purchase, he was able to put his... Not only did he get to Tier 2 first, but he bought a cheaper Tier 2 unit. So that meant Vindicare had more time where he had 5 squads, or 5 units, to 5 squads to DarkHero's 4 squads. But anyway, the Dreadnought is out, and we've got Vindicare actually making his own Dreadnought. I have a feeling the Sorcerer's going to go down here, just an overextension. Force Melee might not even need it, but, I mean, of course, any Dawn of War 2 player knows what they'll do and will Force Melee on retreat, especially with Tactical Marines. They will do better damage, actually, in melee than in ranged. So, a bit of a setback for Vindicare. And otherwise, I would say up until that, that Sorcerer loss, he really was just straight up winning this game. So, Sorcerer loss is going to put him behind. Man, Vindicare not really having quite the legendary micro for such a legendary player, at least not today. Man, I'm trying to figure out, was the range upgraded on the Chaos Dreadnought in the time that I've been gone? But anyway, typically, I mean, the Dreadnought is, the Chaos Dreadnought is actually usually Chaos's most flexible Tier 2 purchase. Since it is a vehicle, it carries that threat of being a vehicle and demands some kind of response. At the same time, it also is anti-vehicle, so it can be used to counter vehicles. I'm actually really, really surprised to see this Dreadnought. The Space Marine Dreadnought is losing, but it's coming really close. Space Marine Dreadnought now taking the advantage, and it looks like we're just going to have a trade in Dread straight up, with a very low health autocannon Havoc actually finishing it off. So what is a little risky, though, about getting that Space Marine... The Chaos Dreadnought is a little bit of a risky purchase against the against Space Marines if they get their own Dreadnought. And that's kind of tough. It's a bit of a conundrum. The Chaos Dreadnought is kind of the most flexible Tier 2 purchase that Chaos has, and yet it's probably also the most risky purchase. Actually, probably aside from a Blood Crusher. It is somewhat of a risky purchase against a Space Marine player. Sorcerer's going to go down again. Really surprised to see that. And the reason being, usually it does kind of get countered by that Space Marine Dreadnought, as well as Space Marines generally have a bit of an easier time pulling out multiple sources of AV. At least the vanilla Chaos Dreadnought with the autocannon, it will be able to damage the Space Marine Dreadnought in ranged, but once the Space Marine Dreadnought gets into melee, it will win. Of course, if the Chaos Dreadnought is upgraded to a Khorne Dreadnought, then it will win against the Space Marine Dreadnought. Wow, what else we got? Oh, so Force Commander also goes down. We're gonna have Grenade is on cooldown from this Scout Squad, so they will not be able to get any models from the Bloodletters. Attempted from the Chaos Space from the Space Marine, just the Tac Squad. Actually got 2 models off those Bloodletters, which is a really, really nice pickup. Went from having 3 models to down to 2. That's some nice bleed that DarkHero is inflicting on VindicareX, especially with these Bloodletters costing 50 requisition and 5 power per model. And it generally does actually feel like DarkHero has had the better end of the resource map control. Obviously, Vindicare has more VPs, and I would say his VP lead has actually slightly increased since the last time I checked. Last time I checked, Vindicare's VPs were at about 460 or 470, while DarkHero's were at about 390. So we have a bit of a bigger gap now, over 100 VPs. There we go with the Force Barrier. I was about to call it Wave of Force, but that's something else from a different game. Anyway, we've got the Bloodletters approaching. There we go, the Worship Plate from Vindicare. Ooh, we've got Khorne Chaos Space Marines. Surprised to see this, and it'll be interesting to see how he makes this work, if he can make this work. Especially Khorne Chaos Space Marines, typically considered a very, very niche purchase. They can kind of have their uses, but just the Chaos composition, it's flooded with melee units. And getting Khorne Chaos Space Marines, you kind of take away what is otherwise Chaos's most powerful ranged unit. At least for most of the game. And Khorne Chaos Space Marines also look like they are getting absolutely wrecked. I don't know if they're going to make this out of... Alright, they'll make it out alive, but that did not go well. Khorne Chaos Space Marines lost a model. Meanwhile, the TAC squad, since they did have a sergeant, they were able to actually just activate their ability, and they'll take less damage as well as do actually knockback in melee. Now, this is actually really, really powerful for Vindicare. He's got the Noise Marines again, hasn't upgraded to a Blastmaster, instead keeping them with the Sonic Blaster and just continually harassing the power. And this is something that could keep DarkHero in Tier 2 possibly the entire game. He may never get to Tier 3. Meanwhile, Force Commander has been upgraded with the Thunderhammer and the Iron Halo. He's going to be doing considerably more damage with this Thunderhammer than just with that starting Chainsword. And we can see him just knocking out chunks of the Sorcerer's health right there. Attempted grenade on retreat. I don't think these scouts have, they don't have the energy or the cooldown. It's on cooldown. I believe they use their shotgun blast. Actually, no. Hard to tell. One Bloodletter model might go down here. Nope. Bloodletter's getting a bit tougher, or they're just tough by default. 300 health per model, since they are 1,200 hit points in the elite mod. And they're about to get a level. So we see the missile launcher from the TAC squad. I wonder if that was even still, if he had got that back when the Chaos Dreadnought was still out. You know, at least right now, the Tactical Marine with the missile launcher is kind of like anti-vehicle insurance. And he can also bash generators with it. I think one of the things that's also nice about this TAC squad right now is that they're actually acting as a melee counter because they have their sergeant. You know, I'll just be completely honest. I'm blanking out on the name of the Tactical Marine Sergeant's ability. I know what it is, what it does, but I'm blanking out on the name. I ran through For the Emperor and None Shall Fall and realized that those are not the ability. I ran through those names in my head. Anyway, part of the challenge of this Havoc right now being a Mark of Khorne Havoc is that it actually gives up the suppression, gives up that control of the Force Commander. So Force Commander right now should be relatively uncountered. The range damage from the Chaos Space Marines is gone. Noise Marines really just don't do enough damage at this point. And the control from the Suppression Havocs is gone as well. So I really don't entirely know what Vindicare is going to do about that Force Commander. At some point he will get a new purchase. He's in Tier 3 actually. DarkHero still in Tier 2, unsurprisingly. Hasn't invested in any generators. His requisition and power income, it would actually make sense for him to put down a power generator at this point, or a node, and he actually did it. But I was going to say that it might be a little risky with those Noise Marines still out in the field, and Vindicare just regularly making runs over there to disrupt DarkHero's power. So the Librarian's out on the field too, and the Spec Chat, which I thought I had gotten rid of, but oh well, I guess I didn't, is just kind of commenting on that Librarian and how he's actually hitting quite hard. He does have the Force Staff, and he actually does 71.43 DPS power melee. I believe even with his starting Force Sword, or Power Sword, I believe it actually still does something like 60 DPS power melee. Ooh, these Bloodletters in a lot of trouble. Oh, they are in so much trouble. If the only thing that's saving them is that they're Bloodletters, so they're tough. We're going to see the Force Melee, Grenade on retreat, or at least an attempt. He's trying to run. He's missing the opportunity. I think he's going to go for it anyway, but yeah, the opportunity is missed. Should have just gone with a little earlier, and it really is really hard to gauge grenades on retreat. Like, I don't think there's like any real method to it. It's really just guesswork and instinct and experience. And what makes it hard getting grenade kills on retreat is that the units, their speed will actually accelerate the longer they retreat. So the longer you wait to throw that grenade, the harder it actually gets. So usually it's just better to go for it earlier rather than trying to wait for the perfect throw, because usually the longer you wait, the harder it gets. So I was really, man, this Sorcerer is in way over his head. I have no idea what he's doing there. I was wondering what Vindicare is going to do, basically, about the Force Commander, since he's really upgraded and kitted out much of his army to actually get countered by the Force Commander. Khorne Marines, he's gotten Bloodletters, so I think at least one answer to that is he's got the Predator, and not just any Predator, he's gone for a Khorne Predator. So upgrades all of the weapons by upgrades the weapon damage by 75%. So that would include the bolters, which should actually make it would definitely make this this particular Predator better than a Tzeentch Predator for the purpose of dealing with the Force Commander. This is very much an all-purpose Predator. A lot of anti-infantry damage with the option of doing AV damage if it needs to. And Vindicare is actually now losing. We got some. I usually don't talk too much about the spec chat, and just asking about like why tanks are so fragile. You know, in spite of tanks having not a huge amount of hit points, I personally think they are one of the best units in the game. Most of the tanks are. I think they're very, very, very good units, and certainly better overall than Dreadnoughts. Yeah, a little tough. Sometimes a little tough to learn how to use, but I do think they are very, very important and powerful units. Especially the mobility that you get, as well as just the constant damage output to, well, pretty much everything I'm saying is just kind of the advantage of really any tank, but particularly I think the Predators. You get the mobility, you get the high damage output, you get the anti-all functionality of it. It really just kills everything. Good against infantry as well as other vehicles, and very good against both. And certainly especially in 1v1, a well-microed Predator should actually be very, very tough to kill. I think some perspective on tanks is kind of skewed by team games where it's a little easier to take down a vehicle, since you don't have to do it all by yourself. But in a 1v1, I mean, even things like high-level 1v1 players can keep Razorbacks and War Trucks alive for a long time, and they'll even do it without even upgrading the armor. At this point, though, this Predator has looked like it might be overextending. Vindicare is actually now having trouble keeping up on the map control. I mean, he does have the lead in VPs, but not quite the lead he had before. And they're changing hands a lot. We're going to see that aggressive teleport. And I think that should, between the Bloodletters and the Predator, I was going to say enough damage to these tacks that they should need to get out of here, and they will. I think we should now see teleport from the, phase into the warp. Ooh, attempted approach by the Khorne Chaos Space Marines. If the Khorne Chaos Space Marines actually got into melee with that Devastator Marine squad, they would absolutely eat it alive. Especially if they had an aspiring champion. If they approach a Devastator Marine squad and it doesn't retreat like before those Khorne Marines even get into melee, we could really be looking at a wipe of the Devastator Marines. And yeah, it's funny, despite the spec chat on tanks, that I actually feel the tank right now is a big part of what is putting Vindicare back in this game and helping him win it. Now, what I don't like is the positioning right here. Luckily, he has a second drive-through path that he can drive through the bottom, and he also has the worship that he can hide the tank. Knows what he's doing, but man, these scouts going for attempting. I was wondering what they were doing back there. Maybe attempting a grenade on retreat. Instead, we just have the flank. Now they can attempt a grenade on retreat, especially if they attempt both grenades. And as I said, the longer he waits, the worse those grenade throws are going to get. Meanwhile, Tactical Marines as one of the sources of AV. Right now, Vindicare is doing a very, very good job of tying everything up. And I'd say Vindicare was actually struggling a bit in Tier 2, and it's really Tier 3 that's giving him the win right here. Because basically, he actually upgraded much of his army to get countered by the Force Commander as well as DarkHero's composition. But then he brought out the Predators, and the Predators were what started countering much of DarkHero's army. And the few counters that there are to the Predators, Vindicare is taking care of using the rest of his army. So that's where the Bloodletters actually will come in. Vindicare, meanwhile, though, actually now not exactly winning. VP's actually now in DarkHero's favor, so this is actually not looking too good. You know what, Force Commander, ooh, this is not such a winning fight for him. I actually feel that the Corn Marines might even want to get out of there, and actually go for the Force Commander. I think they can overwhelm him, especially with the support of the Chaos Predator. Yeah, but the Predator needs to move back. Let's look at that firing arc. Luckily, it's for Vindicare. That's at the maximum range of the firing arc. And yeah, so that made a lot of sense to me. Took out the Corn Marines out of the building, and they should beat the Force Commander. Certainly if he doesn't have a battle cry, they should beat him. They should also back up, though. Wow, he's getting really, really bold here. He's going to... Oh, no, he's gotten around the firing arc. So this is actually very, very strong Predator play that we're seeing from Vindicare. Vindicare is going kind of all in, though. Ooh, can he reposition? Oh, he's just going to straight up wipe the Devastator Marines. Very, very well played. He might lose the Chaos Predator to the Librarian, or the Librarian will go down from the Bloodletters. All right, neither one of those is going to happen. Or will it? No. Instead, yeah. I was wondering if he was going to go for the aggressive play of attempting to wipe the Librarian. Instead, he's going for the safer play of getting the VPs back, since especially now VPs are kind of ticking down against him. DarkHero is actually... Wow, DarkHero is actually in Tier 3. What I have a feeling DarkHero will do... Well, it's a risky play, but it could work, is he might actually wait until he can call down Terminators. Certainly a Land Raider... I don't think a Land Raider is really a good choice at this point. But man, Vindicare actually gets his Terminators out first. And that's funny. Originally, I had seen Vindicare actually go for... At one point, he had started building a second Predator. And he canceled that. Instead got another Heretic Squad for, I guess, the repair support as well as the melee. And then he's actually gone for the Terminators. Terminators also really, really great, actually. Especially considering the biggest challenge usually that the Sorcerer has in this matchup is the Force Commander himself. Both Terminator variants honestly kind of counter the Force Commander himself, whether it's Lightning Claws or even just Storm Bolter Terminators. Technically Combi Bolter Terminators. And we do see this aggressive approach, but I don't think that DarkHero is going to be able to weather the storm. Yeah, this is definitely going to be it. Does get the orbital on the Noise Marines, just kind of for fun, but yeah, I don't see him... Yeah, there's no way he's taking this game at this point. Attacks on the point, they will get the decap, but Vindicare still has the single. He's about to get the double, and this will be the game in favor of Vindicare. So there were definitely some plays that Vindicare had that were some mis-microing that was kind of unexpected for a player of his caliber, but I do feel in the late game his usage of the Predator was outstanding, especially considering there's talk about in the spec chat about how they felt the tanks should be tougher. I really felt like the tank really proved its worth in this game right here. All right then, hope you enjoyed the cast. Have a good night.